that's worth. Let's see now. No comments or anything. If somebody were to comment, I would. Let's add in the screen region here. Apparently, there are no fucking atheists that are not having lives right now. Well, on the most part, we have the poor slobs that we have here, but that's about it. Bring my comment section
Not
up here in
poor.
case somebody does comment, so I can see it.
I'm not poor.
Are you sure about that?
I'm not a slob.
Well,
I'm
I
not
don't know,
poor.
man. You've never been on cam, so I don't know if your bed's made or not, chicken. There's no
My
proof.
bed isn't made. It evolved that way.
Can you imagine what a bed would look like if it evolved? That'd be fucking scary ass shit. Pile of moss and some other twigs
Oh,
and shit
to
sticking out.
start with, for one thing, the sheets won't untuck from the foot of the bed.
Yeah, that'd be part of it, yeah.
Because that would be an advantage, you know.
For anyone who actually, we only had like one person showing up as listening anyway.
Yeah. The pillows would always be temperature regulated to stay cool. You know, and always be that nice, comfortable warm.
Mark
And of course,
Anthony's
some beds
actually-
might have a mutation which produces a warm spot down at the foot of the bed for a cat or a dog to sleep on.
I doubt we have anyone listening in at this point, but if we do, just as an FYI, yeah, we have this big discussion going on that if your bed isn't made, you automatically lose the debate, especially if you're on webcam.
Yeah.
Hey, Jade, welcome
No,
back.
your arguments are just invalid.
Your arguments are invalid if your bed's not made, yeah.
The simplest thing
Well-
to do was make your bed.
Then my arguments are always invalid. I refuse to make my bed. Childhood trauma, I suppose.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely refuse. Well, it's kind of a weird thing. My mom would always insist that what you're hearing is popcorn being being open.
We are broadcasting for what it's worth, just FYI.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, Jay doesn't mind making all this extra background noise.
Yeah.
It's free.
Well.
Oh, we won't have any viewers till later anyway. I'm just goofing off.
Yeah.
I need to make sure that my record feature works on my streaming software.
Okay. But yeah. So my mom would insist that I make the bed every morning, but I could never do it right. I would pull it one way and it would go off the other way. I didn't realize that. Well, I have some problems, what's basically called minimal brain dysfunction, which includes dyslexia and some coordination problems. So there's a lot of things I just absolutely couldn't do. Couldn't use scissors properly, couldn't make my bed because I just couldn't get it right. I'd always pull it the wrong way and it would look like hell. So, and my mom would go, well, can't you make a bed? And my mom was really cool about most things, but making a bed was a real thing with her. You should make your bed every morning. And I could never do it properly. So I swore that when I grew up, I'd never make my bed, and I haven't. I just throw the covers back. I do not make the bed. I absolutely
Headless. Sorry. Do you have Mark Anthony on your list?
No.
I do, and I can invite him.
Yeah,
No,
throw him
so
in.
can I.
Throw him into the fray.
Let's see now. Mark Anthony, where are you? There you are.
So, anything in particular being talked about, or just
Boom was bringing up Thunderfoot and his
Yeah.
rape apologetics.
Yeah, we're probably going to get into that a
God.
little bit more. This is going to be this is basically just free-form bullshitting session. You're welcome to come and
Right.
go as you please,
Okay.
etc. It will be streamed live via YouTube, blah, blah, blah.
yeah,
And I want to reiterate this. It was kind of dumb that that Thunderfoot thinks there's a comparison, even though it may be comparable by sexual orientation on the preference of that's just how they like to get down. So that may be the case as far as rapists and pedophiles go. But the dumbest thing is the difference is that you can consent as a gay person. Children can't consent, and rape victims aren't consenting by definition. And then he goes into the whole bad sex thing. I'm like, oh, you're fucking stupid. It's really not the whole just playing bad sex. Wow, God,
Yeah.
I don't even know how that connection was made.
I don't
Yeah,
even
well,
necessarily
I
want to know.
avoid Thunderfoot lately. If he's talking about science, I'll watch, but other than that, he just drives me crazy. So I haven't a clue what he's doing except from what I hear from other people who are face palming a lot.
Oh yeah, everybody's going. You're wrong, and you should stop talking. Don't talk about that stuff. Don't ever talk about that stuff. And he went into how people who have been in those situations couldn't determine what needs to be done or give advice because they blow it way out of proportion or something along those lines. Like, whoa, yeah, probably they get a little excited about it, but I think that's
I,
mostly because they were the one involved in it.
I really want to know what studies Thunderfoot was referencing in terms of the whole thing, because all the studies I've seen have shown that there's no real pattern.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain things that they look for in terms of ease, so to speak, like long hair makes it easier, apparently. Which is why
It
my
gives you
daughter has
something
short
cool.
hair. You know, you have a handle that way. But
Hmm.
yeah, that just bothered me, and I don't know.
They look for the victim.
It's apparently
I'm
kind
like,
of controversial to criticize other people within the community, but I really been wanting to just rip his proverbial throat out verbally. Just step
yeah.
on his face and that drove me nuts. I mean, I don't get it. And that word just seems to be coming up so much recently. More so in the
Well,
whole theological argument.
yeah. Well, it seems to me you should criticize people in your own community more.
Yeah, I'd think so
I
too.
mean,
It's called
that's
correcting.
yeah, that's the way I always thought of things growing up. If people would say, "God, those people are just an embarrassment to whatever." So yeah, you should criticize your own more. That's the way I've always looked at it because you don't care about those other people. you know,
Care about the people you end up having to spend time or that represent you.
yeah, that you got it right there. The people who represent you, or at least part of you, whatever, or saying completely incorrect things. Especially when somebody says all of this community is this way or that way.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's like all atheists are skeptical. No, they're not. Just look at what's been going on lately.
Hmm. And then I tried to put in the comments of that video that what are you talking about, Thunderfoot, and like go into details to why it was dumb what he was saying, and then I get negative comments like you didn't. Well, if you paid attention to what he was saying and the information, you would see that you should try to lessen your probability of being raped.
I mean,
I think
there
plenty
is
of people
something to be
do that.
there is something to be said for walking with a lot of confidence. First off, you are seen as almost completely unapproachable by just about everyone.
Well, that's
And
true.
because, when I'm sitting there strutting around, people tend to get the fuck out my way, but at the same point, it's not like these women are all acting really timidly. I mean, somebody that I knew that was a regular victim of this, she was tough as nails, and you'd see her walking down the street and get the hell out of her way thinking she's going to kick your ass. It didn't stop somebody from going after her.
Damn. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
really no factor other than this is my opportunity now.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of victim blaming out there, and I think we're getting away from that, but the timing of the timing of this is just a little bit what the fuck, because, well, Healthy Addict comes out with that video talking about what happened at the convention. The next thing you know, Thunderfoot's making something that's basically putting the blame on the victim, and there's a weird correlation there that, not to insinuate anything, but makes me wonder what the fuck's going on here. Was he one of the people in that room or something, and just, I don't fucking know. I just don't know. Yeah. Anyway. Oh, hey, RJ is alive. Want to add him to the call?
I'll add Sam because Sam really, really has strong feelings about this.
Oh, Sam's on too now. Yeah, I'm.
Sorry, someone really is dedicated to sitting on the windowsill.
RJ.
You want RJ?
Oh, he's gotta go.
Yeah, we're real professional.
By the way, I
operation
put a comment in the chat.
We're not so much skepticalizing right now, Bod. But really, right now, I'm wanting to lambaste Thunder because I'm really annoyed at his whole video lately. Because he's kind of.
Right.
Actually, do we have Bod 2 bits on any of our lists?
I do.
Oh, add him to the call. If he'd like to.
Yeah. By the way, did you see the comment I put in the chat?
It hasn't come up on my end yet. Hang on, let me get the main window up.
It's on the Skype chat.
Oh, the Skype chat.
What's
sorry.
in the Skype chat? Skype chat.
Okay.
And this kind of explains what
Yeah, we can hear you.
might be going on.
Mark.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, I have to click on it really quick because otherwise it shows in the feed. But
I see.
We discussed that previously.
Oh, you did. Okay, I didn't know. But that's I've had that from a few people.
That's kind of new news, though, Jade.
Yeah, but with the correlates here, because honestly, I'm skeptical of just about everything that people tell me. So even when that was said,
I am
too.
But I've had this from someone who was there.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of those things where they don't want to tell you their name. They don't want you to tell their name and all that stuff. So you get into a kind of a weird, what exactly do I believe? But yeah.
Well, I don't know if he's caught up with us or not, but Bod, you're certainly welcome to join the call. Apparently, you're on Jade's list, and if you'd like, she can certainly add you.
Yeah. So he's in the outside.
Yeah, I'm seeing him in the comments. I have.
Okay.
The way I set the stream up, I set it up so that you can see what's going on here, and the comments are all up there too.
Okay, so yeah, Bod, if you're on my list, if you want in, just let me know, and I'll drag you into the chat. So, or let Heathens know. I'm not looking at the comments, so.
I'm watching the comments. I see it in there, but he could either comment through there, or you can just add him. It doesn't matter. Hey, Muskie's there, and Muskie, I think said was Muskie that said he wasn't feeling so well.
No.
No, it was Brian.
Oh, okay. But yeah, what's really kind of uncomfortable to me is that I apparently, at least back when I was socializing more and going out more, I'd run into a lot of women that were in the situation that they'd been made a victim of. And the statistic of 1 out of 3 is bullshit. It's more like 7 out of 10.
Yeah, from my experience, I can tell you that that's more like 7 out of 10. Yeah, because women talk to women, and yeah.
But we're not talking all-out rape here. We're talking sexual assaults in general.
I'm talking sexual assault too. I'm not talking rape necessarily.
But, I mean, it's equating it to it's bad sex and they regret it the next day. That frustrated me. I mean, there are people that have regrets, but that doesn't make it either an assault or a rape. There's a totally different connotation there.
Just they didn't like it, so they don't do it again. That's where that goes into.
Years ago, I knew this one girl, and she was really nice, and her and I got together, and we dated for about a week, and then she dumped me, and I didn't find out why until quite a while later, and I finally called her like 6 months later and asked her what was up, and she broke up with me, quote, because I was too nice to her. Well, come to find out that what this all came down to is that she'd get together with people, she'd have a car of her own, and people would be like, oh yeah, I'll give you a ride, yada, yada, yada. And then they'd basically fling themselves at her, and her response to this was to just say, okay, fine, go ahead, you're going to rape me anyway. She'd given up on the whole notion of having any choice of her own because she'd been victimized so damn much. And this isn't somebody that walked around meekly and timidly and was nervous of other people. She was fun and funny and outgoing. It's just that, guys seem to think that seduction means not accepting no as an answer and keep pushing. Or at least a lot of the ones she dealt with.
Damn.
A message has been received.
So in her case, somebody started putting her in that kind of situation, and what she'd immediately do is just basically fold and say, okay, sure, fine, take whatever the hell you want. And even though she technically wasn't participating, if you get what I mean by that, they didn't give a shit if she was a dead fish or not. They wanted what they wanted, and they were going to take it.
Oh yeah, but
Message has been received.
I can tell you it's a lot of that fake rape stuff with the girls regret bad sex thing, or how would I put it?
Are you talking about where people say where they claim somebody raped them when they really didn't, and they were just kind of
Yeah, it happens a lot. I
Well,
mean,
there's the revenge accusation. Oh, well, we had a one-night stand. I'm not interested. Well, you raped me. That's what I've run
just
into
bad
with people a
arguments,
lot. Yeah.
things like that. Or it's these girls that they did something embarrassing, and at the moment that it got exposed, that's when it's like, how can I make myself seem like I'm not a hoe, So, when I had sex with those 3 guys at the party, I didn't do it. I was raped. You see, I was drunk and I had drugs in me, and then guys get like 10 years for stuff like that.
Well, typically those aren't the people that press charges. That friend of mine I was referencing a moment ago.
Yeah.
That whenever somebody started trying to force themselves on her, she'd just say, "Yeah, sure, whatever." She never considered it rape because she gave in. She made the choice to just allow it to happen.
Yeah.
So
Some girls,
she never called it
rape-
that.
Yeah. Some girls are just used to it, like from when they was a child and getting molested as a child, and
And
It's
everything
a
that I
lot.
heard in the Healthy Addicts video, she strikes me as one of those I hate saying one of those kinds of people, but that's really how it came across to me. All the behavior was there in her video, and I'm like, yeah, she's somebody that's has issues in this kind of situation. Hey, bud.
Um,
Hi there.
we had a hangout previously in which we talked about this, and I was in there. I'm with a couple other women that and Dee and Shar and I, and some of the guys were going, well, I can't understand why she behaved the way we did, and all 3 of us said, well, she behaved pretty much the way we would have behaved, or we have behaved in the background in the past. Women don't make a fuss about this because we're taught not to make a fuss about this. So I mean, her account was completely believable to me. I'm
well,
yeah, that's the way it is.
well,
Do you-
yeah.
do you-
Try
Your
not to
my
make a
opinion-
fuss. You're trying to just
Hang on,
Okay,
let
just stop
Bud
it.
in,
Okay,
please.
just stop it. And
I was
that's
just gonna
just the
say-
way it is.
Oh, sorry, Jade.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, my opinion on it is very much that males have to stop from running off at the hip on this, because they're not women. They never grew up as girls. Their whole early sexual experiences and early dating sexual experiences are completely different to the general female experience. And I mean, in a way, I mean, it's overly simplistic, but it's a bit like the white person trying to say, oh, I understand what it's like being black. Well, no, you don't, unless you grew up as a black person and had to accept prejudice and let it roll off you, wash off you like water off a duck's back. Otherwise, you couldn't function normally. And it's a different way of growing up. I mean, I had this all out with a YouTuber because he was saying, yeah, but I used to be in clubs and girls behave like this. And I said, it doesn't matter. You can never, as a man, you can never decide what a woman should do in a given situation because you haven't lived her life. It's as simple as that.
I agree completely.
Or you can't decide what another person. Yeah, you can't decide what another person will do because you're not them, and you don't have. That's why the whole control in most modern societies, well, first world societies, of other people kind of goes away because you can't. You shouldn't control other people those ways.
No, but I think what I was saying is, as a man, I mean, if you grow up as a man, in my case, a white male in England, then if somebody's had roughly the same background as me, then I can relate to them. But even a woman who's grown up, who's the same age as me, who's grown up in the same area as me, I cannot relate to them when discussing those things. I cannot make any assumptions at all about the way they grew up. The only assumptions I can make is from, hopefully a little bit of wisdom and understanding that, I have some inkling of what women go through in the dating process, and so why someone would react in a way that a man would say, oh yeah, but I'd just slap him round the face and I'd kick him out. Well, no, you wouldn't, if you'd grown up in the way a woman had grown up. Because
there's
having
another
your
factor
ass is
too.
Part of the course.
There's another factor too, and it's what I refer to as Jeopardy or game show syndrome, if you prefer. That it's really easy when you're not there in the moment, in the heat of the situation, to say, "Oh, I'd do this."
Yeah, very true. But I mean, the other thing is, if I walked into well, no, I have been hit on a couple of times in gay bars. But if I was much younger, before that occurred, and I'd been in a bar with someone had pinched my ass at, let's say, 25 years old, I'd have reacted quite strongly to that. But the point is, because I would have been 25, and that's the first time someone had touched me in that way. Whereas had I been a girl, that would have been far from the first time somebody probably pinched my ass or squeezed my boob or whatever without my consent. And how many times, if a woman, now it's easy to say, oh, girls should react this way. The point is, society would collapse quite quickly. Yes, a lot of education needs to be done so that they're not treated the way that they are. But but these things take time.
We have to. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I wasn't a full
Yeah,
thought
I was just
yet.
saying. Yeah. What I was saying is that in order for a society to really push forward with things like this, it has to be where we're not down pressuring people to not come forward with things like this. Like we kind of that nowadays, since molestation has been more well known that it happens, and well, it's probably been known for a while, but more acceptable in our society to tell your kids that, hey, if anyone does anything to you, tell me right away. And it's kind of where you have guys going, women saying women, well, they're just sluts and that stuff like that, and it kind of just seems like you get the dick factor of, well, everybody's kind of being a dick about the fact that if women do anything, well, they're just sluts. And even if they didn't want to, in the cases of being raped or forced or, unwilling sex and that kind of thing.
There was.
I think in one thing. Sorry, I'll just say one thing quickly then. I think there is one thing, and I think that is that Western society is not honest. The fact is that, if somebody's caught out for rape or sexual assault or whatever and prosecuted, then they're demonized. Now, what they've done's wrong, but the fact is that this is endemic in our society, and society as a whole has to accept that this is a part of our society that we've yet to evolve past. Mm-hmm. And while you demonize the people, then it's a fact that it is almost a normal part of human behavior. The way that males behave towards females generally. And society needs to be honest with itself and needs to look at itself in the mirror and say, look, let's accept that this is the way our society is, and we want to educate ourselves out of it. Because in this denial, it's almost like the religious denial of sin, where it's so bad that you can't admit to it. And if you can't admit to it, then when you do transgress, it's a bigger transgression because your belief system collapses. And if we're bringing up kids to believe that only demons sexually assault people, and then these kids' sexual drives drive them to do that, then they think that they've stepped outside society. And it's, do you understand what I'm saying? That if society accepts that this sort of thing occurs, then we're in a better position to address it and educate people out of it and move forward as a society.
Part of the problem, I think, though, is not so much the fact that there's, we'll just call it an impulse control issue, or in some cases a confidence issue, that a lot of males fall prey to. There's a secondary issue, though, that when you're talking about the society and this kind of stuff, there is what we refer to as rape culture. And you go, for example, in the Middle East, where they're sitting there putting so much on the women and saying, if there's so much as showing an ankle, they're basically asking for it because men can't. If you keep being told that you can't control yourself because you're a male, it almost gives you a license not to. So there's kind of a dual-edged sword.
I think we should probably address our own problems first, before we point out other people. And the impulse is a very key thing, because a great deal of these assaults, and I'm not suggesting any percentage or anything like that, have an alcohol issue in them. And we know that alcohol, the first thing it shuts down is the prefrontal cortex and moves you from sort of context to impulse. And, how does it... Again,
like somebody saying, "I'm cool to jive," and then getting 5 beers and them going, "Oh, I'll still cool to jive."
Yeah, exactly. And the fact is that, base animal instincts, your ego or whatever has less control over them, which is why when people are drunk, they do stupid stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
there was a situation years and years ago. This was in my youth. This was the first time I ran into a situation in which a woman was somewhat compromised. This particular woman, once again, one of your strong, confident types, and she was visiting a friend's sister from out of state, and I was hanging around over the friend's house, and another mutual, at the time, friend was over there as well, and this guy was sitting there saying, "Oh yeah, I could have her if I wanted her," and yada yada yada. And doing the whole bravado thing. One of the guys goes, "Nah, you couldn't. She's way out of your league." And he's like, "No." And he's like, "Yeah, go up and try and sweet talk her. You'll see. Yeah, you're so full of shit." So they made a $100 bet. Needless to say, about 10 minutes later, there was screaming, and the two of us had to run in there to drag the guy the fuck out of there because he was ready to rape her just to try and win a $100 bet. I've seen some shit in my day.
I've seen plenty.
Yeah. Well, there's people I know, and I won't go into specific who they are, just like, but people I know, and they're not, I don't like them, but I have to talk to them. So they're that kind of relationship with them, and where I have to talk to them, but I don't like what they do. They're and this is 2 people, but okay, so they have the perception of women are less than objects, and that they kind of don't really have altogether high opinion of women, because there was a scenario where he's going to let the other person have sex with this one girl so he could have sex with her sister.
Yeah.
When that girl was madly in love with the first person, the person who wanted to have sex with his sister, and he knew it, and he already had been with that person for a very long time, but he was going to let the other person who was just let him have sex with her just so he could have sex with his sister, and say that, well, she really doesn't care about me at all. I'm like, what? Yeah, and I have to
It's
deal with
just
these
screwed up
people.
crap.
Yeah.
I mean, it's on some degrees an epidemic, culturally speaking. It really is. Just because, and I hate to say it this way, but I think part of the problem is that there are so many men that, oh, well, they're full of it or they're this and that. But at the same point, you do have, as Mark Anthony was pointing out earlier, there are women that lie about it. And
a lot of
damage.
I work at a club.
I don't know about a lot, but
yeah, I can
there's enough
honestly say
people
I've never
that
known a
both-
woman who's lied about being raped. That
the
doesn't
thing
mean
is,
it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean there are.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hang on, that's interesting. I'll have to note that. Sorry, I have to adjust something here to get it to show up on screen. I'm shutting up now.
Oh no, no, nah. I might have a little bit of lag. Like every time I talked, it wasn't nobody talking. I just might have some lag.
Oh, there's
The
going to be a
point
little
is,
bit of
I
latency.
think we are moving somewhere by the fact that it is openly discussed, and I do understand the US is a different place I mean, you've got different societies there, but
May I cover that real quick on the U.S. thing?
well, yeah. All I was going to say is that in England, I grew up. I mean, England is a very small, state, but I grew up in the 70s where racism over here was, it was on the streets. If you saw anyone from the Indian subcontinent, they were a Paki. Corner shops are actually all called Paki shops, where we don't have 7-Elevens here. We have Paki shops, or we did have, and we had mainstream TV shows, which were racist, but that has gone in my lifetime. There are certain areas, but most of it's gone. Sorry, Boom.
No, I was just going to say that kind of make a joke about America. Well, America was founded on certain, in certain ways where they kind of stole land and lied about the value of the land and what they were going to, what agreements, and kind of broke those agreements and pushed the Indians, back further and further and further. So, yeah, and as well as they raped and pillaged and raped black slaves. So
Everybody did that. Look at the history.
No,
of
I'm saying that's how the
yeah,
country was formed.
yeah.
So that's the
Yeah.
whole. So
Yeah,
saying that rape doesn't exist, or giving it it was. I think this is kind of, if you look at it realistically, it's kind of the same attitude people had about child molestation. It's either not talked about or hush hush.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
they don't believe the kids.
in this, again, when I was growing up in this country, the term "dirty old man" was quite common. That was he's a dirty old man, and it was obviously a bloke who, either tried to get girls or whatever. I don't know, but it was just sort of, every village had one, and they were, as long as nothing, too seriously happened, it happened. And and the rates, nothing's changed. The rates will have probably gone down over the years rather than gone up. I think the big difference is probably amongst teenagers and early 20s, because until a couple of hundred years ago, there was no such thing as teenagers. They didn't exist. You had children who worked. Typically, before the Industrial Revolution anyway, they worked within the family, and the family decided when the girl got married, and the son would have to have a business of his own, so or property of his own, so the girls would typically be married somewhere between sort of 13 and 15, and the men probably 5 years older. But again, because families were very nuclear and society was quite nuclear, within that social group, it was pretty well looked after. I mean, but that had only been in place for a couple of hundred years, a few hundred years, because in feudal society, the peasants weren't valued above cattle anyway.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. it just, I don't know, man. I've seen so many things and talked to so many people and run into so many different circumstances. And I know that there are times, somebody just made a comment a moment ago stating that they know two guys who were falsely accused of rape. Well, that's possible. And these things do happen, and there have been situations of it. But now, the thing is, in terms of the
I have,
accusation,
actually.
normally
I
those
have a story on that when you're finished.
I was going to say, normally, most cases like that, it's just somebody sitting there talking, and they don't exhibit any of the basically symptomology that you'd expect from somebody that had been in that kind of circumstance. But also, those cases typically aren't the ones that go to court unless it is some kind of serious revenge situation. And it's unfortunate because it hurts everyone that does try to come forward, the fact that there are situations like that. And I'm going to make myself more coffee and take over for a moment.
But yeah, I know a guy who was falsely accused. He was dating a girl for a long time. He broke up with her, and then turned out she was pregnant. And he was like, "Okay, I'll take care of the kid, all this stuff." He tried to be the good guy about it. Well, she decided she didn't want him around anymore because he had dumped her. And when he was trying, it was actually it's just such a weird story. As he's trying to, wedge himself back into her life, she says that he beat her and raped her, and he winds up with, sexual conviction. And it just didn't happen, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. See, and all right. Well, I was falsely accused of it.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I was gonna actually make a video on YouTube about it, and but I know first I've caught a girl in a lie one time when she basically cheated on me, but she tried to make it seem like she got raped. So it was another example of girls just not being proud of who they freaked. They blame it on everything else besides the sex. But when it was me, pretty much I mess with. I work at a club. I work at 2 nightclubs, and I also been the type of guy that always just mess with crazy party girls that drink a lot and everything like that, have a lot of sex, whatever. I would consider them hoes, to be honest, or whatever like that. So pretty much this girl is a common girl. Like, everybody knows her. Like, me and her done actually did it plenty times. We done actually...
Everybody knows her in the biblical sense?
Yeah, everybody knows her in that way, and everybody sees her around. Like, they seen her in my house and everything like that. And the bottom line is, one night I took her out, and we was at the it was at the Crab Shack, and we was ordering food. It was karaoke. It was a fun night or whatever. But she was pretty much getting drunk. And then bottom line is, we came home and we didn't have sex because she was too drunk and she fell asleep. And it was like 7. I just got a text message, but it was like 7 in the morning, and I was just trying to kick her out. And pretty much, like, she got so mad because I woke her up at like 7 in the morning, like, "Hey, yo, man, the bus about to come." And then she was like, "What? Are you trying to kick me out like some whore?" And I was like, nah, I'm just saying, man, it's 7 o'clock, man, the bus coming. Plus, like, like, I was really trying to kick her out like that. Like, I'm not trying to spend the rest of my day with her, pretty much. And then lo and behold, bottom line is, she tried to fight. It was one of those ghetto little female male fights, like domestic violence things. She punched me directly in the face. Like, first she was like, "All right, well," she was like, no. First she said, "No, I'm gonna stay until later, like a real girl," or something. Like, I was like, "Nah, man, just get out now." And then she was like, "All right, let me get my clothes," and she punched me directly in the face. And then I was pushing her and everything like that, biting and all. She was like biting me, and I got a bite mark on my back. And just typical nonsense. And I was drunk. And then it came to, she was like, all right, but like, I'm leaving now. She was like, let me get my clothes. And she went and smashed my computer. Like, one of the reasons she smashed my computer is because I make money online. But the other reason why she smashed my computer is because we have actually a sex tape. Like, we have like, not just one. We have like videos of her like doing oral sex on me, like screaming and yelling, like clear like videos, and she know these things.
Damn.
Like, yeah, and she smashed it for those 2 reasons.
You can.
Yeah, let's try and keep this a little bit closer to the R rating, guys.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No X-rated stuff.
I think the point is that, I mean, We could probably all come out with people. We can always say, "Oh, we know somebody this, or we know somebody that, or whatever." But
Yeah, but
I mean,
it's
the fact is that if if you would say how many false allegations there are about anything compared to how many actual cases there are, they'll be so small, and so really you're sort of it's almost anecdotal evidence to destroy the overwhelming fact that
oh yeah, definitely,
this sexual abuse goes on.
definitely. I
Yeah.
think, but I do think it's higher than people think though, because I think it's easy to believe somebody like that. Because getting to the end, I just fast forwarded. I'm the one who called the cops on her. I literally called the cops and said she just broke my computer, and I want her to pay me my money for it. It was like a $700 computer, and she got here and she gave him this whole story. Like I was just laughing at her, and I was like, "Yeah, you done messed up now." Like I didn't think nothing of it. Bottom line, they ended up not charging me with, but I went to jail though. I went to jail and everything, and I was in jail, like in a holding cell, so mad and so frustrated. Like, how can they do this? She had no proof. I called the cops on her. Like, I kept saying it. Like, I called are y'all serious? And the bottom line is they ended up not charging me, but they charged me with assault and battery.
Yeah, but Mark. But does that case undermine the issue of the sexual abuse and exploitation of women?
No, that's what I want to. The point that I want to make is like, when you have those personal experiences of let's say somebody tells you something about, I don't know. All right, pretty much what I'm saying is I mess with a lot of dumb, stupid whores. I'm just trying to be honest here, and they do these type.
Well,
of
yeah,
things.
but they
Right,
probably all
that's
say they probably say that they all mix with the same dumb, stupid cunt, and so sorry, R-rated. So really, if there's 100 of them and one of you, then you're probably wrong, and they're all right.
I know. I'm just saying those.
Yeah, well, I think what you're saying. I don't think what you're saying is very intelligent, and I think it's incredibly disrespectful. For if these women are so dumb, why are you hanging around them? What does that make you?
I know. That makes me a person who likes a lot of sex.
Well, no, I don't think it bigs you up very much at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying but I'm saying the it's very over.
Let me put it to you this way. Bill Cosby once said that he likes the fat chick because the fat ones don't make fun of the fat one because the fat one's always the nice one.
Yeah, exactly.
You're picking but it makes you.
No, I'm not saying. If you get to know me, you'll know I don't think being a whore is a bad thing. I don't think a girl who likes to have a lot of sex is a bad thing, and I don't think it's really a negative.
Well, neither do I, but I mean, I still don't downgrade them.
No, it's not downgrading at all. All I'm saying is girls make.
Well, you are actually when you call them whores, you are downgrading them.
I think what's what we're getting at here is sort of the connotation and some of the things you've said is pretty degrading towards people in a general sense. You may not intend to be meaning it that way, but when someone normally hears it, that's the way they're interpreting it.
And that's why I have this bold, it's so hard for me to find the right words that I just say the most first thing that comes, but I really mean.
The thing is, there are people out there that enjoy their sexual freedom. That doesn't necessarily go with the connotation, because the connotation of things like whore and this and that is that the person just gives it to anyone and that they really don't give a crap who it is. And to a degree,
that's what I'm talking about.
But women do make choices. They don't say, "Oh, there's some homely guy. I don't give a crap. He wants to get laid. Let's do it." They still have standards of their own. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but y'all missing the point. What I'm saying is, the words like bitch and whore, they exist for a reason. They mean something. And when I use those words, I'm using them for what they mean. I understand everything you're saying, and but I also don't judge people for certain things. He said, why would I be around them? Because I can't be around a girl who doesn't do have having a lot of sex. But it's a thin line between a girl being freaky as hell and crazy as hell, because it usually comes along with smoking a lot of weed and drinking a lot of alcohol and just making bad decisions or just being ghetto in general. And what I'm saying is, I think it's very overlooked from my personal experience how many of these girls are just so scandalous and just so devious that they really like. I'm sure that it's a lot of people in jail for like 10 years because of the same situation as me, but they just didn't. Maybe they would. Maybe they wasn't the ones who called the cop. And it's a girl who she bit her own lip and cut her own arm. And first of all,
Ouch, Fred.
yeah,
Sorry.
but these what I'm saying is just these things happen more often than most people would
Yes.
think. And
Well, there are
Yeah,
some
but look
people
who
out
you're
there that
hanging
need psychiatric.
around. Yeah, I said, look who you're
Drugs.
hanging around. That's the problem. I had a friend who used to complain that all of her boyfriends would beat her up. And I pointed out that's because that's what you're choosing. You're hanging around. You like the bad boys. You're hanging around these tough dudes. And yeah, that's what you're getting. So if you're going to hang around women who are kind of freaky, guess what? That's what you're going to get. You're right. There's a thin line between freaky and crazy. And if you're going to play that game, yeah, that's dangerous.
So, yeah,
They are
so,
going to. Yeah.
Where you were bringing up the point, or there's choices being made, and you are making the choice to pursue these women, and that's where those, that's what sort of what Jade was getting at there. You're putting yourself in the situation where these women behave that way, and they do, and then when it happens to you.
Yeah, I think we all agree. I think we all agree on the same thing. But what I'm saying is the main point is that when you how would I put it? I'm saying that you would, from the outside looking in, you wouldn't know these type of things. Like if she came to you, you wouldn't know that she was this type of girl. And what I'm saying is these girls exist in abundance, regardless of what I like to do. And that's what I'm saying. These girls exist in abundance.
Well, I think
I
specifically
can
for
agree
me,
to
I
that.
wouldn't meet girls in a club, so I wouldn't take any girl home from a
That's
club.
fine.
There
So
are
I
certainly
wouldn't,
girls that go out on the prowl. There are girls that are predators for all intents and purposes, and I don't mean that in terms of sexual predator. I just mean, personality.
They look first.
But working
they
at a bar,
want
you're certainly going to run into more of that type.
Yeah, but
And-
it's not really about me.
But at
It's
the
just
same
about
point,
in general.
at the same point, though, you're talking about women that are taking control of their own sexuality to some degree. And what the initial topic here was is women that have that control taken away from them. And
Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
have to divert us kind of back on track here before we get too far sidelined, because we're apparently not a
Sam.
democracy, even though somebody said democracy earlier. Hey, Sam, welcome to the call.
Hello.
Yeah, Sam, would you like to contribute about the first part of this conversation, which was Thunderfoot making his most recent video, which I know you watched it because you put it on your Skype thing.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan. I find it ironic that at one end he criticizes feminists for wanting a dress code at conventions, and on the other hand he's blaming them for dressing like sluts. Which one is it? Those are sort of two mutually exclusive positions.
I don't recall the part about a dress code at conventions, but I could have just missed it. I don't know.
No, it's in one of his earlier videos.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like why feminism is poisoning atheism or some
There-
shit.
There's a whole chain of his dealing with feminism, which all culminate in this whole women should be more accountable for being raped because they need to walk like they're confident and like they're predatory animals as opposed to acting like prey. And it's like, fuck you.
Yeah, I know. I saw that last video. Sam and I were in a conversation the other day where we were talking about it. So yeah, it was kind of a what the hell was that moment? It was disturbing almost.
I thought it was very.
I think. What was that?
I was agreeing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like the part
go
that
ahead.
really disturbed me, and I think that this, if you have any sanity, it should be the most disturbing part, is when he compared his experience of being chased by a mountain lion to being raped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're non-comparable scenarios. One, mountain lions are less cognitive. I can actually, well, you should know more about biology than me, Sam. But
I've had somebody pull a gun on me. I've had somebody pull a knife on me, and I really don't consider that equatable to somebody taking something by force, other than simply, give me your money. Okay, hang on here. I want to keep my ID here. Oh, thanks. See ya. But yet, there's a difference there between that and I'm going to do something to you.
Well, like, and even then, that's the closest comparison that I think you can make, in my opinion, is like an assault scenario. But even then, rape is just such a different crime from pretty much anything. I mean, to be completely honest.
Yeah, and it with the mountain lion thing, the mountain lion was protecting her cubs, and that's what the whole scenario was going over. Why the hell he was near a cub thing, I don't know. He may have wandered in there idiotically, but and some people do that too.
Thunderfoot acting like an idiot, color me surprised.
And yeah,
Thunderfoot's a scientist. He's not very socially aware, I don't think.
But you know what's interesting is that I want anyone who has watched Law and Order and seen when they catch, say, child molesters or whatever, because what they're reenacting is actual. If they reenact court cases, they get the dispositions from those court cases, the public information. But you can also see when people really get caught, and you can see court cases and how they conduct themselves and stuff like that. And it's very similar between Law and Order version of it and when they really are caught.
Well, the most dangerous thing that Thunderfoot says is he says, well, by saying, by blaming women for dressing well, or dressing quote-unquote sluttily, I don't know, in a sexual manner, by blaming women for doing that, you're also saying that men are just these beasts that can't help themselves but rape.
if there's a woman who's dressed sexily in front of them.
Exactly.
Yes.
And when it comes to handling, say, this is what I wanted. I wanted to make a response video to it because, we can't anymore. But I'm still probably going to make a video where to teach children not to rape is not simply to tell them that rape is bad, but to learn what makes somebody want to rape people. What in their mind.
Argumentation fails. And the reason it fails is because we live in a demonstrably less violent society than we did, let's say, 200 years ago.
No. There's more to it than just what makes someone, there's the chemistry of the brain.
But what I'm saying is like if you say, you can't, teach someone not to, rape, but you can still mitigate, like it's never going to get rid of the problem, but you can still mitigate it because we've taught people to be less violent.
And also the internet helps. The internet has helped a lot, and you can see that murder rates have gone down. A lot of aggressive acts have gone down because the people who are that way can meet each other because they can contact each other through online. But as far as it goes, you can see you do psychological studies on kids, and you see who's the aggressive one, and who is the person having issues, and you can see that early, and then you could you teach them not to be as aggressive, and there is ways of doing that.
Well, I mean, the thing that is the disconnect for me, and maybe I'm absurd here, so someone call me out on this, but the thing that jumps out about me is whenever someone says, she was dressed, loosely, I've never heard of an outfit that says rape me. Like, I've heard of I will concede that there are come hither outfits. I've been to bars. I know, that those are, but I've never seen an outfit that says, I want to be raped. That's where the disconnect is for me.
Yeah. Well, the simple fact is two women could be dressed exactly the same, and one of them your jaw will hit the floor, and the other one your eyes won't even pause because we're on one level we're animals and we're attracted to some things and we're not attracted to others. And you could have two women in the bar and you could be with your mate, and on one of you could think one of them was absolutely gorgeous and the other one is but the other one's plain, and your mate is the opposite way around. There's no accounting for taste. So there's obviously what they wear is in the eye of the beholder. The man is very attracted to the woman. What happens next to progress it further is probably alcohol fueled.
There's actually been a number. There's been a number of studies, though. I have to kind of cut in with this, that have shown that a lot of the time males will be attracted to the person that those around them are attracted to. There's a certain peer pressure involved in attraction as well. Sorry, continue.
How do you know what
It's a study I read a while ago.
When somebody walks into a bar, there needs to be telepathy involved there, wouldn't there?
I know that's a somewhat different situation, but it was an interesting study, so I thought it should be cited.
Yeah, I've not heard about that, but I can understand.
It's not telepathy.
I can understand that.
Mm-hmm. Even though you don't realize it, you can read facial expressions, and you can actually read what people are. You get a sort of reactionary.
Micro gestures and stuff like that. Yeah.
But you read this without realizing it, and the reason I know I can actually comfortably assume this is because you can see people reacting even if there's like when you say your daughter's having a bad day, she doesn't say anything, but you know she's not happy, and you don't understand why you know that, but that's because your mind, your subconscious is actually reading her without you realizing it, and that's why you can tell she's not happy, even if she's smiling.
No, this study
you can still tell when people.
The study was specifically dealing with peer pressure. People talk, for example, the woman in the office that everyone's always talking about. People that initially think they're not attractive become attracted to them over time as people keep talking about how great they are.
Yeah, that's also true.
Repeated exposure effect as well. The more you see of someone, the more attractive they become. I don't remember exactly because I haven't taken a psychology course in years, but it was something along those lines where you're more attracted to things that you're familiar with than things you aren't familiar with.
Oh, yeah. I think the other thing, I mean, talking about why, again, the thing society has to accept is that we're animals. And as animals, our prime reason for being here is to pass on our genetics. That's why we are here, because from that slime in that original puddle, whichever bit of slime was our great whatever ancestor was the one that managed to pass on its genetics. And every evolutionary step all the way through to us now, our ancestor was the one who managed to get its end away, the male side. And that's how we got to where we are. So we are primarily driven to have sex. And as soon as you become sexually mature as a male, you have that drive. Now, how much society suppresses that drive and how much the morals and ethics that were instilled in you as a child and through your peers and etc. Stifle that desire, you still have, within you somewhere is that animal, is that chimpanzee who wants to bonk the next thing that's available to pass on your genetic material, because that is your prime genetic drive. Mm-hmm. And we have to accept that as a society, so that when you're in the bar, and again, I'm a male, so I know what male feels like, and I don't know how this feels like for a woman. But when you're in that bar as a male at 18, 19 or whatever, and the girl comes in and you're, sexually attracted to her, a big part of your genetics in there, 3.5 billion years worth of genetics, is saying, spread your seed. And a very thin veneer of society is saying, you should go and ask her a name and buy her a drink, because a lot of you wants to bend her over the table and inject your seed, because that's what your genes are driving you towards. And society, I think, needs to accept that.
That was good. Everything you said was great. True.
Yeah. What I know, there's a close relative of ours that we've watched and actually conduct in raping
Bonobos,
females.
I think.
Bonobos?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Well,
They
yeah.
They
I mean, our
also
two closest relatives are the bonobos and the chimps, and I think it was one of Sam Harris's books where he says that in a way we have both elements, the bonobos and chimps, because the chimps, I think, solve every sexual problem with violence, and the bonobos solve every violent situation with sex.
yeah.
The
Even then,
bonobos,
not
the
actually-
bonobos will have sex for
That's
anything,
actually an
and the bonobos will have sex with any sex and any age. That whatever the issue, they have sex, and then they groom each other, and it's all over. The chimpanzees tear each other to bits. So
Well, even then, that's been proven to be somewhat inaccurate. It seems like it's the social situation that dictates which mode of pleasing bonobos or problem solving, bonobos tend to engage in. In like bands the size of the normal chimpanzee band, they actually tend to start in certain situations start to be rather violent and solve problems the same way chimpanzees and humans are stereotyped to do, which is pretty interesting. Steven Pinker talks about it in his most recent book.
Yeah. Here's somebody who's putting in comments saying RJ is making a bad assumption that rapists are rational people to begin with, which actually
When did
I'll
I do
cover
that?
this. I don't know, but I'll cover this one.
Okay.
Because if you're an opportunist, let's say, because an opportunist is someone who takes the best opportunity, how is that not rational in a bad way? Even though it's using your rational thinking. Basically, rape is about opportunity, taking the best opportunity you can, which is really hard to say.
I'd have
Positively,
to qualify
but
it further. I'd have to qualify that a little bit further.
Yeah.
The kid that I cited earlier that went in there intending to have sex with that woman, convinced that she wanted him and that she would be attracted to him. He thought he was acting rationally. He did not think he was acting irrationally. I'd say he was acting irrationally, personally, and I'd consider his behavior aberrative, but that's beside the point. To him, in his mind, he was being rational. A lot of these people that spend great amounts of time trying to plan out the right circumstance, etc., to try and pull something like this off, or selecting a victim, etc., they are acting in a rational manner. So that's a kind of reasoning that we think of as being normal, but at the same point, it is certainly a form of being rational. At the same point, in the case of like date rape, where you have some kid I'm going to go with a teenager in this case, that's dealing with hormones that they
You're
can't
lagging
fully
real bad,
control.
13.
Oh, sorry. Well, I did not. Let me close one of these friggin' windows here. See if I can help. I don't know
While
if
you're doing that,
what I was going to
there's
say in the
someone
case
who's saying,
I was going to just say in the case
Yeah,
of
go ahead.
date rape, though, when the hormones are there and they're in the moment, they might not be rational. Sorry, go ahead.
well, it's like killing out of passion, and it all kind of just does correlate with each other. But 1 second.
yeah, I think the issue is that when you talk about rationalize, well, everything we do we rationalize. We've got these competing inputs in our brain or whatever. We've got the primal instincts, we've got our sensory inputs, we've got our higher brain functions, where we've developed, and these things compete with each other. And most people everyone knows of somebody who's acted completely out of character, where their impulse drive has overridden everything else, and they've reacted in a way that everybody says, oh, that's completely out of character. So perhaps it may be that that these people at the time they're rationalizing fails, but it doesn't mean that they're they're behaving any differently to anybody else. The person who becomes the serial killer or the serial rapist or something like that, then I mean their whole pleasure reward circuits have got completely twisted. But they're still rationalizing. I mean, they're still, their brain is still dealing with inputs. They haven't inherited an alien brain or something. It's just that their whole processing is gone off kilter. And nobody's pulled them up on it. Nobody's addressed it.
Yeah.
I mean,
someone taking advantage of a situation and a predator. Someone just commented, it's like there's like both are kind of doing the same thing. You're taking advantage of the situation in like cases of date rape, but as a predator aggressive rapist, which I don't know what study or what Thunderfoot was reading when he said that 10% of rape is, because he didn't cite anything. He didn't say, well, here's where you can.
And also, I'd like to make this remark, from the perspective of a fellow academic, I find it kind of abhorrent that, like Thunderfoot, he's taking 2 or 3, citations on what is, I think, a pretty gargantuan field the last time, I checked. I mean, the social psychology of these types of crimes has always been an area of interesting research.
Oh, was huge. Well, I could have just left that in the comments.
I mean, I was going to say, again, on this rationalizing thing.
I have to cut in for 1 second. Hang on.
Yeah.
Chicken, you there? Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Never mind, Griffin's
I'm
Griffin's
here.
in.
I'm just,
Never mind.
I was just quiet.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I was just going to say on this rationalizing thing. If anybody who commits any offence, if you're able to sit down with them and say, at the moment they choose to have that defence and say, look, weigh up the costs of you getting caught and spending 10 years in prison against this offence, you could probably talk them out of it. The point is that at the moment when they make that impulsive decision to create the defence, they're not thinking everything through straightly. They're being driven by a basic instinct for a reward, an instant gratification.
Okay, thank you for joining us, Griffin. You just watched Thunderfoot's video.
I did. I am subscribed to him, but I have noticed a general decline, not just recently either. His video, I agree with him partially, in the sense that we do as women need to just be sensible when you're out, because it's like there are no, like the clip he used of the child with the other stranger in the car. Not everybody is nice, and it is a bit silly to go out there and just think, oh, I'll be safe because we have to just. I'm not going to get raped because I'm being good and I'm just not going to do anything wrong. When there are people that will pursue you. I actually I was given a book, and excuse me, I am tired and I've got a bit of a cough. And this book was entitled How Dangerous Men Think. And it was written by a cop. And I read it, obviously, and a lot of it made sense. About, body language especially. I mean, if a woman stands there looking all nervous and everything else, I mean, even I think she looks like a target, and I'm not going to do anything to her. So he has a point, but at the same time, I got the impression he was being a little bit patronising, and saying how we just have to behave ourselves and and not cause too much strife. It just reminded me of the attitudes that my grandmother used to talk about that went on in the 1950s and 60s, where women are more or less expected to be good little girls who stay in the kitchen and don't do anything wrong and just stay home and starch the drapes. So, like I said, I agree with him partially, but at the same time, I think he took it just a bit too far. Just a bit.
Could I jump in quick? I've actually changed my opinion because initially I thought that the first part of Thunderfoot's video made sense. you take precautions necessarily or whatever. But now I think that no, that was an unnecessary thing to say.
One moment.
Because,
One moment. Boom. Yeah,
yes,
adjust
your
your mic.
house falling down. Is there elephants coming?
I think that's
What?
that's somebody typing.
Right, I thought I could hear elephants on their way. No, what I was going to say is, I think that first part of Thunderfoot's video was it was irrelevant in the context of the debate that it was addressing. You know, if the debate is about the rape, then deal with the rape. You know, you don't need to tell people what's bloody obvious, and you know that's something that can be discussed outside. And it does sort of that. I do think it then sort of plays into the mind of the rape apologist, because Thunderfoot has to understand with his reach that a lot of people, well, he doesn't understand it because I don't think he's that socially aware, but he should understand with the reach he's got that a lot of the people will take that video completely the wrong way and take that as, well, yes, that's the women's fault then.
Yeah.
Which, no, it's not. It's being sensible, but within the context and again within the reach Thunderfoot's got, he's got more responsibility, and he shouldn't have said that.
Well,
actually, you're
my
right.
perspective on that was I thought that it distracted from the point, and I thought it was a straw man on his part. And the reason why I think that is because look at who advocates for like women's self-defense classes, and how and educating women on how to not be a victim. It's almost uniformly feminists who would side against Thunderfoot. No one is saying that you shouldn't protect yourself as a victim. It's just recognizing that you should prepare yourself and not allow yourself to be a victim, but in the end it's still not your fault if you get victimized.
Yeah, it's just very simple. Rape is bad, but as a person, just try not to draw attention or put yourself in situations where you can get raped. It's very simple.
Yeah, but that isn't something that he should have been saying. I mean, I don't know if you saw my response to what was her name? I can't remember her name now. Who did the original video on the conference assault?
Healthy Addict.
I did a response to Healthy Addict. I did a response to that, and in excuse me a second. And I said in my response, it doesn't matter if a woman is stark naked in front of you and gyrating. You still don't have a right to touch her unless she says so. And I had people in the comments come down. I mean, that video, I had more negative comments on that video than I had on all my other videos combined.
Because so strangely hottish.
Some of the people couldn't get it into their heads that you don't have a right to touch women, whatever they do, unless they say to you, if they come and climb on your lap.
No, people pay money for them to come. Hang on. There are places where guys go to have women climb on their laps and gyrate. They're still not allowed to bend them over the table at the bar and have sex with them.
Precisely.
Mind you, I'm talking strip clubs, but nonetheless, you're still not allowed to, just take what you want even there in that context. And these are women that are scantily clad and gyrating. Yeah.
Yeah, because the woman's doing a job, and you as a human being should respect her as a person, regardless of what job she's doing.
What is that noise?
That's what he was saying in his
that
video,
because
I've never seen it. I'm not even subscribed to his channel, so I've never seen the video.
Yeah, I mean the issue, and I agree with Bod. I was having a conversation with someone who actually agreed with Thunderfoot, and I made this point, and he made this point. He goes, "Well, if I'm at a bar, like I can put my arm on like a girl's arm in like a joking way." And I go, "Well, yeah, but if she backs away and she doesn't want you to be doing that, then you don't do it." There seems to be a disconnect with these with people who make this point, in that you have to understand that everything happens in context, and that if someone doesn't want to be touched, if you do it by accident, you apologize, say it won't happen again, but you don't repeatedly do it to the point where it's unacceptable. And there are certain things that in any context are unacceptable without explicit consent. It's a gray issue. It's not black and white, but I think it's that type of nuance that people just don't seem to understand.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Sam. It's nuance. I mean, I had exactly the same people say to me, well, you can't always ask for, explicitly for verbal permission. Well, no, of course you're not. If you've just been chatting to a girl in a bar for a while and you're sat down, you thought, and you think that time's right, and you put your hand on her knee, and she, you get a reaction. Well, and there is, again, you should have had some non-verbal communication beforehand that told you that. But yes, in these dating situations, we do make a move one way or another, but we don't thrust our hand between their legs. We make a move, and they make a move, and women do it as well as me. A woman might come and brush your hair or whatever. You make a move, and the reaction you get from that move tells you what your next step is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, isn't that the issue, though, is that a lot of people don't like seeing nuance like that. I mean, I'm saying this, no, I'm not going to pretend that I'm a woman or that I get hit on anywhere near the amount that women do. And I'm a heterosexual male, so I know that I don't. But in the two instances where I've, two explicit instances that I can think of where I've been hit on, by a man, a gay man, all right, I guess, or he could have been straight. He was just in there for shits and giggles. But presumably gay man, they made an advance, and I said, oh, I'm sorry, no, I'm not, into that, et cetera, et cetera. Somebody, people try to make the point where, oh, like if I get rejected initially, or, if, et cetera, I read sign X to be sign Y. I don't view someone touching me on the arm and me going, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not into that, as them committing sexual assault against me because it was their mistake, There's and that's the thing, is a lot of people who make this argument try to say that, oh, well, that, people who are on this side of the issue, who are, I guess feminists, for lack of a more nuanced word, they like to say that, oh, these are people who are against any type of sexual contact in any situation, when that's just not the case. It's just that it's a gray area and you have to respect someone else's autonomy and wishes.
Yeah. So
and that's the thing. One of the arguments that Thunderfoot made in his video basically is that if a girl is flirting and leading you on, well, then they should expect it. Or at least that was kind of the implication that was in his video at one point, and that had me about flying off the handle.
I got that too,
of course.
So you weren't the only one.
Of course, because, if a girl's busy doing her thing in front of a guy, he has absolutely no control over himself, because men have no control at all, do they?
Well, that's the thing that I hate is these people, they say that they're for men's rights, but they're making men out to be freaking idiots. Because apparently I'm an ape that can't control his impulses, when I thought I was a rational human being who understood that women have concerns and I have concerns.
Oh, by the way, every time you use technology or anything that's tools and stuff like that, such as computers, you're going against your nature, because that's not found in nature. But anyways, we are predisposed to a lot of things. You have a lot of things in which you're predisposed to, like you don't like being hurt, which would mean you don't like being electrocuted, but you're still predisposed to curiosity. Therefore, children sometimes put coins in, into little sockets, and it.
Oh, God.
What was I supposed to have grown out of that?
I don't know. Random. Anyways, you're predisposed to a lot of things, but a lot of things we do are against what we're predisposed to. You can be predisposed to, like, bored to bits at procreation. That's not necessarily rape. That just means you want to have sex. And then it's on both sides, because if both sides didn't want to have sex, then we wouldn't have people. But doesn't mean that we're predisposed to rape. But you are predisposed to.
The one thing that I kind of agreed with, or the one sentiment I should say, is that within certain feminist communities there is this whole notion that all men are rapists, or all men are potential rapists, and there's a certain level of, fuck you.
Actually,
Yeah,
how does that make you guys feel when you hear that?
I mean, first, it's just.
Pissed.
Or go ahead, RJ.
I was just say, just to answer her question. Yeah, pissed. And it doesn't even just go there. I mean, there are women that won't go in a door if you hold the door open for them and stupid shit like that. I mean, I'm holding the door for dudes too. It doesn't fucking matter. Go inside, bitch. And I mean bitch in that you're being a bitch.
Yeah, well, I can open a door by myself. I'm quite capable.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm just being polite.
Yeah, but Griffin, do you mind
yeah.
if somebody actually holds the door open for you because they got the door first?
Yeah.
Actually, I think that a person who does it has got good manners and they've been brought up properly.
Right.
I agree.
And I do the same.
Yeah.
And I do the same, and I get some very funny looks from guys when I do that.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what? I'm just trying to be polite. You know, the roles have been reversed, but it's the 21st century. Get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I don't like radical feminists because they're like, sometimes when you take an idea and you take it way, way too far, it's just one of those things where it's, every man is a rapist. Well, that can't possibly be true.
Yeah, I don't identify as a feminist myself at all, and it's the radicals that have put me off big time because I don't want to be associated with that. I believe in equality for all genders, whatever genders, and I don't see how women should suddenly be put on a pedestal higher than men just because. It's wrong. It's stupid. And they can't seem to understand that.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, it's from, the 60s and the 70s. So understandably, at that point, it's feminism. And
yes.
Excuse me, feminist here?
Feminist
in the 70s?
I don't... Yeah, sorry.
If you guys will let me cut in for one moment, seeing as Jade just opened a door and I'm going to ask her to take a step through it. Feminism back in the 70s was really about rights and getting equal treatment. A lot of the new feminist movement seems to, in my mind, have gotten derailed on certain issues. And it's gotten to the point of being extreme enough in some cases that I think it puts everyone off. And in some cases, I think people like Thunderfoot's being, in terms of his video, is kind of in counterculture strike back against the fanaticism within certain segments of feminism. Having been there in the earlier days of it, how have you seen, or how would you interpret the change within the feminist movement in terms of this kind of
There's
stuff?
no change. We had those idiots back then, and we had to fight them.
Really?
The rad fems existed back then.
Ugh.
Yes, I could talk about it for hours, but I'm not going to. It was difficult. One of the problems back then is we were all very, I was in my early 20s. I was born in 1950, so I was 21 in 1971. And and I was a lesbian feminist. Now, back then, we called ourselves radical lesbian feminists, not because we're like the rad fems today. Let me make a distinction here. Because we rejected the middle class Ms. Magazine type of feminism, which tended to ignore class distinctions and to ignore women of color and to ignore lesbians. So what we looked at as radical feminism back then was very different from the rad fems. But we had the rad fems back then. And we used to try to be very inclusive and let everybody talk, and we learned that doesn't work. So basically, we had to kick them out of our groups. And then they attack us. A famous situation was, and this is actually little known, which I find interesting. In 1973, I was one of the organizers of the West Coast Lesbian Conference at UCLA in 1973. We had a couple of thousand lesbians come from all over the country, and a couple come from out of the country, or a few from out of the country, for conferences at UCLA. And that was a pretty radical thing back then. Unfortunately, when we did this, we organized and we sent out messages to everyone saying, this is what we're going to do. Please let us know if you have any objections, you have any additions. These are the workshops we're going to have. These are the things going to be talked about. The problems of women and lesbians specifically in during our time. And, let us know what's going on. And the gay men in Los Angeles, offered to babysit so that women could attend the conference. That way no woman would have to miss the conference. And we thought that was really cool. That was nice of them. We didn't even ask them. They just volunteered to babysit. So we had this all set up. Well, what we didn't realize is that, we were working with people here in California and in Los Angeles and Orange County. I actually lived in Orange County. And people in San Francisco. And the gay community in San Francisco was actually more conservative than we were in Southern California. But we were used to dealing with these people and dealing with some people across the country. We had no idea this whole RadFem thing existed. They showed up and tried to take over the conference. They had an absolute fit at the thought that men would care for their children. And we had to, rather embarrassed, ask the guys to please leave. And they were very nice about it. But, how embarrassing to have these people show up and all of a sudden try to tell us what feminism was, to be very, very anti-male. We weren't anti-male at all. And yet we were like the radicals of feminism. We had no idea these people existed. And they were furious at us, and we're going, but why didn't you tell us that you didn't want men looking after your children? We could have made other arrangements. Why didn't you tell us this, that, and the other thing? It was absolute chaos. I mean, for people who actually attended the conference, we got nothing but positive feedback. But for the organizers, it was a nightmare. One of our members was a woman who was trans. She was male to female transsexual. And nobody thought a thing about it. People had known her for years. And yet all these people showed up and tried to say how men were trying to take over the lesbian feminist movement because there was one woman there who we'd known for years. And, oh, God, she left. She volunteered to leave. We were willing to stand up for her. She said, nope, we're not going to have any problems. I'm just going to leave. And she was in tears. We were in tears. Because how could these people attack someone they didn't even know just because she was a male to female transsexual? Yet she was a huge advocate and organizer for the movement. So no, they've been a pain in the ass for years. The thing is, there is mainstream feminism, and there are various different levels of mainstream feminism. You still have the Ms. Magazine feminists. You still have the people like me who work for equality. You have to realize there are lots and lots of programs out there. A lot of feminists help promote and still promote and work for Planned Parenthood. A lot of feminists work for education of women all over the world. That's one thing that's very important, trying to get the women in Afghanistan educated. And it's a lot of feminists are kind of changing their focus now because there's been a big push to get girls educated in Africa. And because of this, it's almost reached parity now. So the way to go now is to increase the education for boys and girls, since it's now reached parity. So there is mainstream feminism. It's bigger and stronger than this handful of nitwits. But the nitwits always get the attention.
At the same point, though, it's like when we're dealing with the fundies. There are certain voices that always are the loudest.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
But Jay, do you think it's something to do with a freedom they feel that isn't because they're feminists or fundies or anyone else, that you've got a group who feel they're an oppressed minority or whatever who then become mainstream enough that they have a voice, and certain people within there feel empowered, and the noisy ones rise to the top?
Well, I actually, in my experience, it's the noisy ones who are not the ones doing the work. They're just being noisy. They write books, they lecture. You don't see.
And this is actually, a little bit of my understanding of when Martin Luther King was pacifist because he couldn't have done what he did if he was aggressive, and he knew that, and he understood that. But he would have had no problem at certain points of being aggressive. He just understood that if you were aggressive, you wouldn't have been having as much sympathy with your plight as you weren't. And he learned that from Gandhi, because that was one of the people he understood that from. But also, then you get, say, Malcolm X, and he's going into any means necessary, but he doesn't like Martin Luther King. What?
To realize that it wasn't what I thought it was. But the people who made all the noise, you didn't see them actually doing any work.
But yeah, so
And wrote books and
Actually, that's what I noticed too.
Fucking pain in the ass.
Wait.
Huh?
I noticed that they were. I noticed that was the really nasty vocal shriekers. Yeah, you're right. I never noticed them actually doing anything either, except being loud and obnoxious, and very unattractive. So yeah.
Or perhaps they're ego-driven rather than cause-driven, maybe.
Yeah. Huh.
They also seem to be, instead of actually doing anything themselves, trying to push the movement in one direction or another as well. I think that's a fair criticism.
Yeah, fair call.
Leading from behind.
Yeah, and tell everybody else, hey, go do that.
Since becoming disabled,
Like
I've
I
actually
said-
been a house husband, and I get shit from feminists for being a house husband, so go figure.
Yeah.
Well, it's
well,
one of
like
those
I-
funny things is I just the marketing of feminists in mainstream society is just such utter horseshit that it is, for me, impossible.
That's why I see. It's the silly ones, the ones that stand up and scream and yell. Makes me really reluctant to even identify with the feminism movement. I mean, I do agree that equality is necessary among all genders, but at the expense of being associated with that, really?
Yeah, but see, that's why I insist on calling myself a feminist and putting myself out there as a feminist, because I want people to.
Oh damn! People are having really bad problems with their internet.
I have noticed.
Yeah, everyone's going up and down. I mean, I don't see. Again, feminism's. I don't know. Other people in England may have a different idea, but I don't see it as a big issue over here. Maybe that's again, you are your circle of friends, and I mix with quite a lot of Wiccans, for instance, who are. They're quite strong in the feminist, but again in the gentle way, not the big vocal, red-headed scream at the students type of way.
I
if you know
one
what
of those.
I mean.
Yeah. I'm finally back again. My connection's just horrible. At least I think I'm back.
Yeah, a lot of people are having problems with their connection. It's normally mine.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know if you got what I said, but I said this is why I insist on calling myself a feminist, to let people realize that the rad fems do not define us. Most feminists are people who are actually working for things. And, we even worked for equality for men in divorce cases, because we felt it was really stupid that women automatically got custody of the kids.
Yeah.
And
there's a bunch of male advocacy groups going around trying to help with that kind of stuff. And some of the people that are very anti-feminist, very anti-woman, I dare say, are people that are involved with that kind of thing as well, because they're, basically bitter because of some of the rights that women have, that, the whole, we believe the woman should have the child kind of thought process.
But see, we thought that was stupid back in the 70s, and feminists actually worked to try to stop that.
I think that a lot of them have lost sight with what matters. They've just lost touch or never had it in the first place. Perhaps.
Well, as I said, most feminists are just simply working in the, they work at Planned Parenthood. They work at battered women's shelters. They, raise money to educate women in Afghanistan. The people you hear with all the noise are, again, it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And there are a lot of feminist historians and theorists that aren't the ones you hear about, because every time somebody says something stupid, it's going to hit the news.
Oh, yes, and it does.
It's like all
everywhere.
Christians aren't idiots. Look at what we see most of the time when you look at the news and you see Christians out there. That's not the main.
Oh, God. Well, it's true. I mean, most of the people on my Facebook are Christians, and I have no problem with them because they don't give me any shit.
No, I do feel that a lot of the radical feminists should be sat down and given a history lesson and said, look, it might not be where you want it to be, but look where it was and look how far we've come.
It's something I've noticed with a lot of groups, similar to that way. They want everything and they want it right now, and they don't care that it takes time for societies to change for the most part. I mean, there are obviously rational people, but the loudest ones, the ones that are that make all the noise, they want it right now, and there is no such thing as a compromise, which is asinine to me personally. I don't understand how anything could get done without compromise. It's just,
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that I have with a lot of like rabid anti-theists on the internet, and it's the same thing that I have with really extremists of any group, even if I agree or disagree with them, is that you have to understand that you just have to teach people to think correctly. That should be the goal, because if you're just trying to push your position in this really emotional and really, extreme, powerful way, you're going to turn more people off than you turn on, and you make everyone who holds a similar position. Like me being an atheist, it Thunderfoot makes me look like a moron being an atheist on YouTube, even though I have no connection to the man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The first time that I did one of these live events, it unfortunately wasn't recorded, but the topic of that was groupthink. And we were talking in that particular chat about how the worst among any group seem to be the ones with the loudest voices and seem to end up becoming the caricature of everyone else. And this is certainly another area in which that seems to apply, because a lot of people that are fighting against feminism, so to speak, are fighting against this perception that they're getting from these extreme voices within the group. And as a secondary note that I have to throw in here before I move on to Nodvik, yes, I'm always reorienting the screen.
I wonder what was going on. I was like, what the heck is going on with our screen? But oh well, it can't be the caffeine I've just drunk. I hope.
Right.
Yeah, I needed a bit of a pick me up today. I was feeling a little bit flat. But oh well. See, back in the day when I was a Christian, I came across Thunderfoot for the first time back in 2007, and I was still very much a theist then. I had a pet name for him. I referred to him loudly and proudly as that English bastard, because his videos made such an impact that it rattled me. I hated it, and I had to, have some little comment to say back at him to make me feel, more validated as a Christian. He had a lot of power. He had a really good content. If it could rattle me, and I'm very stubborn, then he must have been good. And I wish he had stayed and stuck with the science, because that's what he's good at. Instead, he's gone off on this tangent that he knows very little about or understands properly, as we've just seen. Because what a waste. He's good.
Well, it's one of those things where, and I've, taken the time to learn this as just a valuable, if anything, a valuable life skill, which is that there are some things that I know very, very well. I'm going to stick to sounding like I have authority on only those things. But when I don't know something well, I'm going to shut my face, because honestly, I don't gain from looking like a moron pontificating about something I have no clue about.
Just imagine if I started sprouting all this nonsense about cars to Redline. Can you imagine that? It would be. It's the same sort of principle. He doesn't understand feminism clearly. Actually, I don't think he understands women, to be honest.
Well, I commented because I think I'm friends with Coughlin on Facebook, and I commented on one of his statuses that Thunderfoot's the type of guy that just never got laid in college. and it's a very insensitive and it's a very childish and crude thing to say, but I stand by it.
Maybe he didn't. I don't know.
Yeah, there are certain times when the boy doesn't seem to get social cues anyway around it.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, I
the
don't
simple
either.
fact
We
of the
all
matter
know
is
why.
but when he's dealing with science, he's there. He's okay. I'm going to actually invoke the ghost of Christopher Hitchens for a moment, if you all will excuse me in doing so. When he was talking his whole vitriolic, wonderful rants against, just railing against religion, for a long time I really enjoyed listening to it. And I thought it was great, and there were plenty of people that listening to Hitchens said, well, shit, you know? And they changed their viewpoint. But the moment he'd start talking politics, it'd be like, disagree, disagree, disagree. And it's a similar vein with Thunderfoot. It's, you know, as long as he's talking to science, it's like it, like it, like it. Then he gets on this other shit, and it's like, shut the fuck up. But unlike Hitch, who's still managing to be eloquent and intelligent, what Thunderfoot's arguing against is a caricature of what feminism is, what rape is, for that matter.
Well, the thing about Hitchens is, and I'm a huge fan, you know, of Hitchens, and I do disagree with a lot of his politics, is Hitchens isn't a dumb guy. He isn't making dumb points. I just disagree with him. Mm-hmm. When Thunderfoot's spouting off about this stuff, he is making dumb points.
And that's exactly the point I wanted brought home. I want to make sure it just wasn't my perception of it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree completely because, you know, I'm not, you know, I wasn't, you know, pro-Iraq war, but, you know, that doesn't mean that Hitchens didn't have a legitimate position on it. It's just that I disagree with that position.
Yeah, but I never found myself sitting there watching one of his discussions saying, no, fuck you, you're wrong, you don't know what the fuck you're talking. And with Thunderfoot, that's exactly, every time he gets on this whole feminism thing, it's like, shut the fuck up, you're an idiot.
Yeah, I think that's when Hitchens, you know, was talking about his politics that I disagree with. Then the difference is when Hitchens says it, you know that he's saying it from an educated point of view. And he, you know, and if you're a skeptic, then it makes you at least question what your position is, and perhaps research a couple of the points he's, you know, brought up, and thought, well, do I still disagree with him? Whereas, yeah, if when Thunderfoot steps away from the test tube, I think he's, I don't know, shooting from an empty hip flask, perhaps.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's.
Oh, by the way,
I don't want the people like, I think it was Live Life was one of the people that was giving Healthy Addict shit, if I remember correctly, and then there were others, and I'm thinking, what? I'd watched Healthy Addict's video. I've talked to so many people that have been victimized, and everything she said told me, okay, what she's saying here is a reasonable accounting of the behavior of somebody that's been victimized, and also from what she said in that, I'd be willing to wager that in her case, being victimized started at a very young age based upon her responses. And you have these people basically calling her a liar, saying she's full of shit. It's like, fuck you, man. And you have these people that are so dogmatically going after them because dup. It's like, no, there's an appropriate time for place for that. Learn it. And yeah, it's frustrating to me. In part because I've known so many people, I've seen so many situations, and I've had to intervene in a couple of occasions. I mean, this is serious shit. And simply blowing it off and immediately trying to discredit everyone? And I know within the skeptical community there's a tendency to do this, and I'll be the first to admit it. Truth Search, when he came out with that video with him first playing the guitar, and granted he had some music playing in the background, my first thought is he really playing it or is he fucking with us? because there is that time that you're skeptical when you necessarily shouldn't be, or that there's no good reason to be. And we all fall prey to this, but there are certain times when you just need to learn to shut the fuck up. And take your skepticism, and even if you are going to be skeptical, take it and wait till you have more information to act on.
Yeah.
Well, that's why it takes me days to plan any videos I do, because I want to know what the hell I'm talking about before I open my mouth.
Well, I would like to remark the last video that I made, and I just haven't I've been very busy, so I haven't gotten around to making another video. Is there was this guy on YouTube who I think is a fairly radical Christian, not a creationist, but there was a study that came out where essentially, to give you the Reader's Digest version, it essentially established that in rats, when you induce cardiac arrest, it leads to a surge in electrical activity in the brain right after the cardiac arrest happens, and that surge is correlated with a signal for consciousness, or the nearest correlate, I should say, in the brain. So the hypothesis is that this could begin to be an explanation as to how near-death experience happens. Now, I think it's a good study. I thought they did a very good job. I've read the study. I thought that the media, as they always do with interesting findings, overhyped the crap out of it. But this guy makes a video where instead of actually, saying, well, here's the point, this actually, I wouldn't have a problem if he goes, well, this doesn't really establish all that much. It's just a possible way and a possible methodology of, measuring things like this. Instead of saying that point, which I don't necessarily disagree with, he goes on and he tries to deconstruct the study without actually reading it. And some people just don't have they already have their minds made up, so the study's going to say what it's going to say.
Yeah. Now, it's one thing if you're just... Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, somebody just, recently on a Juby video I did, where they'd said, I read so-and-so in National Geographic, and I said, oh, God, you're going to quote National Geographic at me. It's a joke. It's not a science magazine. So he then comes back and says...
one of my great uncles is the CEO of National Geographic.
Let him talk.
I'm not going to hold... You used to be a Christian. These things happen. So anyway, and so this guy then comes back to me and says, well, have you even read National Geographic? And I said, have you watched the video? Where in the video I discussed the hadrosaur called Dakota, which was picked up by this guy, I think it was Makin, whose paper that I put in the description box, etc., etc. These people don't want to, and I said to him, I expect the people to watch my video to be inquisitive, and therefore to actually watch the video and then look at the description bar. And you haven't done either, so why am I even conversing with you?
Well, it was one of those things. Guy, I think, is obviously educated in some way. That his name's Drest83 on YouTube, and the first video that he made, he tries to criticize sections from the discussion. Why are you criticizing the discussion and not the results? And I read from the abstract, from the introduction, from the discussion, that he's verifiably wrong. Then he tries to quote 3 studies that supposedly, he quotes. Of course, they don't say what he wants them to say. And then he goes. Half of his videos are criticism of, what the electrodes could be in the brain. And he's like, oh, it could be picking up scalp muscles, where if you read the second section of the method section, you want to know what they say? They say that the EEG, the electrodes are straight in the rat's brain. So he makes half of his video off of not reading something. And his most recent video, again, it's a matter of, the question that he asks actually gets addressed in the supplemental methods section. But he doesn't know how to, read a study, which is a skill. That is something that takes some, information. And he's not interested in whether it's, true or not in the scope of it just looking for the truth.
Ugh.
Sorry, I just had to rant. It pissed me off.
No, it's
Yeah.
fine.
And with and for me, the reason I look into whether or not any whether or not say Jesus exists, and that's what I'm doing on what I'm researching. But I don't care if he does or does not exist. The point is the existence of him, because if he doesn't exist, then he's up there, I guess, with Hercules um, and who else? The other avatars of the gods that didn't actually exist but were written about. And if he did exist, then he's up there with Joseph Smith. Who else?
L. Ron Hubbard, etc.
Yeah. But it's like, well, it doesn't matter whether or not it's false or true to me. It just matters what's more accurate.
Well, here's the thing. In what this guy put in his response video to me, in his description bar was skeptics are denying, this study. My religion, I looked at it as a scientist, not as an atheist, not as a theist, not as anything. I was just looking at it as, does this paper actually say what it says? And it turns out, here's the thing about peer review. It almost always says what it says. Peer review, and I hate to stress this because right now I'm in the middle of writing a publication, and we sent in the publication and we got back some pretty stringent remarks from the reviewers, and and we're investigating it. And the truth is that peer review, it's a bitch to get things through because you really have to demonstrate your point. Because if a reviewer lets something slide, that's bad against them. And, of course, there are people that just don't understand that process because they've never either been through it or talked to someone who's been through it.
I can only imagine what peer review is like. I mean, I've done my own little research things for class, obviously, and it was just me being marked by lecturers, and that was brutal. So I can only imagine, how tough it is to get something through and get it, accepted widely, whatever. And it's not easy. You're right. It is not easy.
Well, one of the reviewers straight up told us, and granted, I'm not one of the primary authors on there, but I'm still a co-author, and the reviewer just straight up said, "I'm not convinced that this is a novel innovation."
Ouch.
Like straight up said, and he didn't mean it in any insulting way. I had to strip my emotions away from it and actually look at it rationally, and I believe that person's wrong. Mainly, because obviously I'm trying to push the study, and we wouldn't be publishing if it wasn't something new. But
I can do it just like this.
It's the live event thing.
I can't, obviously right now I can't really,
still work.
because of proprietary reasons.
My last one worked really well.
Privacy reasons. I can't tell you.
No, I just haven't seen anybody actually
exactly
do
what the
one.
situation is. But trust me, these people are very, very skeptical and very, very critical. It's not easy to get published.
There we go. Sorry,
And
I
that's
had
how
a
it should
momentary
be.
problem with the stream. Okay, there we go. Should be fixed now.
No, I think it's a good thing. But it's even I didn't know the level to which it was like until now I'm on my first publication. And and I'm just doing a ton of work addressing what the reviewers say, with no guarantee that they'll accept the publication.
I can only wish, that I'd be unpublished in something got a long way to go before I can, get up to that sort of caliber. Mind you, I've only just finished my degree, so oh well.
I mean, I only have a bachelor's right now. I just work in a lab as a graduate student, and that's where we're at. But
Hey, that's cool though.
Yeah, no, I mean, if I can do it, pretty much anyone can. So it's about it's just a process. But my point is that I kind of hate when people act selectively skeptical against findings that, one, they don't know how to actually interpret, And I will stress this, that understanding how to read a paper is a skill.
Yes.
Like it is. And the problem enters when people want ideas to be true. You know, I love certain things to be true, but I want to know about reality. I don't really care, to be honest, whether things are, whether what I want to be true is true.
I understand what you're talking about. It's an interesting thing because I'm onto the topic of religion for a moment. As much as I'm an atheist and I like to sit there and go after very religious views, there are times that things have come out about, we've discovered this about this or that about that I am bothered by. When I was listening to some Bart Ehrman lectures, for example, and he referenced the Good Samaritan didn't appear till what was like 600 years later is when that first appears in the text, and another one was what was it, the adulterers, throw the first stone. He used without sin, throw the first stone. Those didn't appear till much later texts, and I'm sitting there thinking, damn, those are two of the best frickin' stories in there. I don't want that to be true, even if I'm up, so to speak, against the religious notions or whatever, because I'm an atheist, or if I don't buy it, I still want that to have been part of it, because, damn it, that's a couple of good parts that are in there. So I actually had an issue with that.
Yeah, well, good stuff always comes later, but then, like graphene. But, well, graphene's amazing, but and that's where I'm gonna stick on. That's like next generation, ride with that. Next generation's got kind of like graphene, then it goes quantum computers if we could ever figure that one out. Though it would take molecular computers because you'd have to go faster than the processing power of the computers we have currently. But that's side note. I'm going bad way. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. There's plenty of stuff that you find weren't in there, but I'm like, well, it really doesn't matter whether or not it was in there. Do you like the story? That's fine. Because I didn't. You're getting stories from different times. Anyways, what does it matter if a story was originally in there or not? Because they're all added at different times. I know it's like, it wasn't in there originally. Well, yeah, but still, you got every other story. So every other story was added later, or was written later than the previous story, in different orders, because some were written earlier and some were written later, but they put them in different orders than chronological order. but yeah, then what the hell does it matter? Because the 5 books of Moses were written far beyond. Genesis was written after the first. The Exodus and Leviticus, it was actually written much later, but you still hold that story true.
I've always been amazed by literalists, but I always have the weirdest sympathy for them because, I can understand that position a little bit more. They really want it to be true, and I... In some ways, I wish I was that way, but in other ways, I'm very thankful because I'm not that, either way, I'm not that passionate about, whether X and Y position is the, I don't have an emotional investment in it, so it allows me to look at it, at least a little bit more objectively. Of course, no one can be completely objective, but I do have that sympathy for people who do have an emotional stake in it. It's just, it's a little bit sad. In my view.
Well, yeah, to a degree, they're trapped in that, they have to think it's true, so to speak. That's the way I was raised, and I recognize how that feeling works. So, but yeah, essentially the way you put it is, yeah, I feel more sympathy towards those people, while I tend to disagree with them more, and they annoy me more. I do have that degree of sympathy, to use the same word again.
But I mean, again, a lot of people are, it's just sort of, I go to church on Sunday. I know way more Christians like that than I know, people who actually want to argue about, Jesus existed because X and Y scroll at, Z year indicates this.
Mm-hmm. My research on it, anyways, is on why is the consensus, and do we have points against the reason the consensus is? And there's substantial points against certain things, like the context in which writing styles are simply match that of fiction, but you're in it matches the Odyssey, and the Odyssey is written well before the biblical text was, so there's no way the Greek text, which was the Greek manuscripts of whatever, had no, weren't impacted by there's no, it's a very unlikely improbability, because that book was around and these people were literate and intelligent, therefore there's no way they couldn't have picked that up, because if there's very little you can read and you have very little entertainment, yet you have the ability to read, you're going to pick up whatever you can. But yeah. But I've still got to look into what reasons people believe exists. Which is where Bart Ehrman comes in. But yeah, I understand the emotional investment. Everybody has an emotional attachment to things, on whether or not stuff is real or stuff is. But I like reality. Reality is much more fascinating. And as a matter of fact, I tried to tell this to people. This is a relatively new concept I thought of. Is like, well, if your God is infinite and you have an infinite amount of things, what's the likelihood that you can fit the infinite being into any book, no matter how big it was? So I think why would the Bible be valid on that basis?
I think the issue for the belief is that there are. I mean, take people like Ray Comfort, who's plainly dumb. I mean, he's not an intellectual, and if the people he's addressing are not intellectuals, I don't mean that. I mean that I know many people who the last time they read a book that never had the TV details in it was when they were at school. They have no interest in reading anything. Now, these people are not expanding their knowledge, and they have no desire to expand their knowledge. So, if somebody tells them that the moon is getting closer, they then turn around to me and say, "Oh, you know things. Is the moon getting closer?" And I just think, well, where do you start with somebody who hasn't read a book since they left school? You can't say, "Well, go and read a book." Just read. Do you understand how the moon goes around the Earth? Do you know what a barycenter is? Do you know any of these things? Well, no. So why are you asking me a stupid fucking question? Go away and learn something. They're not interested because they want to watch X Factor and WW whatever it is, wrestling. And these, if these people believe something, you can't distract them from their belief, because to do so would require them to educate themselves.
Yeah. To use my mother as an example, she does not read, and she probably never will. And she says, and her and I get into a lot of disagreements, but the thing she told me that disturbed me most was, I don't need to know, or I don't want to know that, because I'm not curious. I don't have any curiosity. Really? Everything I need to know is in this book. That's all I need for my entire life.
It hurts.
I know, it's painful. It's just like, damn, I want to hate you, but you're my mother. I can't,
Yes, you can. You can.
Oh, I can. Yes.
Oh yeah, we all can hate our parents.
Yeah.
They're our parents. We can love them to death, but still hate them.
Well, here's the
Oh
thing.
yeah, no.
I
yeah.
will not go out with someone who does not read. It is that simple. Because what do I talk about?
Yeah. Well,
I like
a
reading.
lot of
Reading's
us,
great.
yeah. Well, all of us, and this includes theists and atheists alike, we're all self-educated, but we're just more self-educated in certain things than other people. But what's interesting is that I actually gave Nephilim Free the website of MIT. So MIT holds online courses, and they hold them for free. You can watch them and
Really?
you can actually learn. Yeah, they hold.
Mhm.
There's physics. I've gone into entire things about mechanical physics, and you get these notes and you get the PowerPoints. And this is my promotion
Yeah.
to them because they're doing this. This is
I want that link.
Can I? Okay. Can I?
Oh, yeah,
Can I
uh-huh.
add something to this? The University of California has a lot of stuff online. The University of California at Irvine is putting its entire physical sciences department curriculum online. Videos of every single class. Most are online right now. I'm watching both basic physical chemistry, and organic chemistry at the same time right now. The University of
put those links
California.
in.
I will get
I
the links.
want
I
that
will give you
link
the
too.
links.
Yes.
I will give you
Thank
those
you.
links. The University of
'Cause-
California at Berkeley has its current classes online. Their current biology classes, and they show up every week, because it's the current class. I'm currently watching one, the Bible in Western culture, and the guy in the beginning says, basically, if you like the Bible, you may not like this class. And their current psychology and Stanford has a whole bunch of stuff online. There's also, if you go to iTunes and go to iTunes U, you can download a lot of courses. I've actually downloaded a course. I haven't watched it yet. From Liberty University, the Christian college
Oh yeah.
on geology. Yes,
Oh.
I have Liberty University on geology. So, but yes, the University of California is working towards putting all of this stuff online. The University of California at San Diego is putting conferences online, and I'll get those and I'll pop them in here. And they recently,
awesome.
recently February, had a conference on Exodus
Mm.
with experts from all over, from anthropology, from geology, from archaeology, everything you can think of. They even talked about what the weather was like back then. And so these are academics. This isn't a theist thing. These are academics talking about the Exodus. So they periodically have their conferences online. So this is getting to be fantastic. There are lots and lots of courses in iTunes University. Just go to iTunes.
There's also
and if you-
a bunch of
and they're
lectures
free.
too.
They're free.
On YouTube,
Yeah.
they have the UCLA lecture series. I was listening to History 2D, Science, Magic, Religion, and listening to that lecture series. I was on part 11 before I started this call.
Yeah, and as I said, that's UCLA. That's part of the University of California. So I'll get those links and I'll pop them in here for you. But you can go through and see. That's what I do, and that's what I did even before they had all this stuff online. I was purchasing lectures, which were essentially an entire semester's work of, because there's a place called the Teaching Company that has lectures that have actually been in different universities, and you can download them on different subjects. I've got them on various math courses, including mathematical proofs and mathematical induction, discrete mathematics, the Middle Ages, the early Middle Ages, the Middle Ages. That's not what they call it, but the High Middle Ages and the Late Middle Ages. I've got a fantastic course that I know Brian's listening to now on, and that one is just, some of them are video, some of them are audio, and it's on the history of science and up until 1700. Fantastic. But the point is, this information is out there, and one of my big bugaboos, and I've said this before, is the fact that people go out there and grab the information they want, but they don't necessarily know it in context. If you don't have some sort of directed learning, like even watching a course from beginning to end, you miss whole pieces of the puzzle. So when somebody tries to talk to some of these people about it, and especially these creationists, I see just things that are just absolutely astonishing. Like the guy the other day, Sam, you remember?
Yeah, I was
Blue
about
Boy,
to
I call
mention
him.
we just talked about this yesterday.
Yeah,
And
because he
I think his name's
he didn't even know how the
Harris.
cell worked.
Well, yeah, I
Huh?
mean,
What?
my own research contradicts everything that he just said.
Yeah,
And it was just sort of like, I know personally because I've been in the lab. I go into the lab every single
Rodney?
fucking day.
Wait, who was the guy?
This is my new presuppositional apologetics I use when they come. You get this. Oh, evolution's just a theory. My immediate response to them is, could you name me the last 3 books that you read on evolution cover to cover? And of course, instead of going away and thinking up some books, they're too stupid to do that, and they just come back and go, "Oh yeah, but." And I said, "Well, if you've never read a book on evolution, don't come on here and say it's rubbish."
Well, why should I read that? It's false.
Yeah,
Well, I'm just gonna
actually, to
be-
bring back the
I'm just going to be pedantic here and explain why, education's important. This is my bookshelf, which is right next to my desk. Here we have Evolutionary Analysis by Scott Freeman and John Heron. Genetics
one.
by Lee Hartwell. The Molecular Biology of the Cell by Bruce Alberts. And I can just go through. I have many more books like this on my bookshelf because I use them. And, it helps to actually know formal knowledge of this stuff.
right.
Even if I am self-taught, the only reason I can be that is because I've had very good professors.
Right, and
Yeah,
if you
I've
get a book, you actually go, because one of the things I've done is I've gone to different university websites and I've gone to their bookstores to find out what books they're using to teach certain classes. And if I'm interested in that class, I buy that book. I have 2 books on bacteriology right now. One of them focuses on bacterial evolution. I recently bought a book on physical geography. Geology, sorry about that. And that's where I found it. I went and found a class that's being taught, and I found out which textbooks they're using, and I bought it used. Now, I didn't buy the newest one because they're expensive, but I found the previous edition, which was relatively inexpensive. So I can not only can I look through that book, but I can now go to the website of this class and look at the reading schedule. And sometimes there are lecture notes there. You can go to different universities, and I've done this for years, go to different universities and find the website for the particular class. And they'll have, like I said, the reading schedule, supplementary material, lecture notes, quizzes. Sometimes the answer. MIT is good for that. They have the quizzes and tests and the answers for them too. So,
and as a matter of fact, yeah, that's what I was
that's
saying.
cool. Yeah.
But that brings back to the point. Of Nephilim Free. So I was in a chat with him, and I actually gave him that link, and I gave him the wrong one because I gave him the one on physics first, and I was trying to give him one on chemistry.
So here are all the biology textbooks that I have in my room.
Now, this is for everyone out there. If you want to find the courses we're talking about, just look online. Just search MIT, the course you want to find about, and then you'll get into the overall category of that subject, which is everything in the category itself. Physics. If you search physics, you'll find mechanical physics and so on and so forth. But I gave him that link, and he just shrugged it off and like, no, I'm not gonna look at it. I'm like, well, you could look at it so that way you become more educated on what the hell you're talking about, because you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. And because he kept going into geology about the fact that water can free flow ions from radioactive material and free flow it from one substance to another if it rained. Basically, if there was a radioactive material that's up at the top of a hill and water flows down, therefore if there was more lead at the bottom of the hill, it interferes with the aging of the substance, which is so fundamentally stupid that I hurt my head.
Yeah, how do you
Because
counter, claims like that?
because actually I can counter it right now with they don't just take one sample, they take multiple samples all over the place, but it's like there's no actual way it moves matter from
Well, no, I meant like philosophically how you deal. I sometimes have problem with this. If I get asked a sufficiently dumb question, I end up just kind of, scuttling around trying to answer it because it's sort of like, well, that's not the right question.
yeah. And arguing with Nephilim Free is kind of like arguing with a parrot who hasn't just talking.
A parrot who hasn't been given.
They're not really saying
A
anything.
parrot who hasn't been. A parrot who has not been given his cracker in due course. Yeah, I know. I've seen a few of his videos, and I'm just like, dude.
Well, and he copies his stuff from different places. I've caught him twice now, actually reading. Well, I think he memorizes stuff from a place called Science and God or something like that. I have it listed. And if you ever, I've actually been going through that site page by page and looking up all of the papers, downloading most of them to see what they're talking about. And of course, it's crap. But he was talking about, bacteria. People were talking about we've seen bacteria evolve in the lab, right?
Right.
He brings up this guy whose name is Niels Herbert Nielsen, and he pronounces the name wrong.
If y'all will excuse me for a moment, I think there might be a problem with the stream. I'm not sure.
I'll take a look.
Okay. So, could I go ahead?
Go ahead.
Okay. So he brings up this Niels Herbert Nielsen, and he says, Dr. Nielsen studied bacteria for 30 years, and he said that he never found any change in the bacteria. Okay. Which is very interesting because he got that from that website. Now, I looked up Mr. Dr. Nielsen, and apparently that quote comes from a book he wrote in 1953. Another thing that happened in 1953 is Watson and Crick described DNA. So for these 30 years, supposedly, that Herbert Nielsen, which is a dash, that's his full last name, did this alleged research on bacteria. I'm not done yet. He didn't even know about DNA. Herbert Nielsen was born in the 1800s because he died in 1955. But I decided to look him up, and I found his book in WorldCat. Yeah, the problem is I can't read it, even if I were to go to Stanford and pull it out of the shelves, because it's in German, and it's never been translated to English. But I was able to find a review of the book in Science, the Journal of Science, from 1953 when it came out. And according to the reviewer, although Dr. Nielsen says some interesting things about evolution, some of the things he says, including what he says about that, I've actually got the actual paper, review, but I'm going from memory right now. But some of the things he says about things like, paleontology are simply fantasy. Now, it turns out that Dr. Nielsen, if you look him up in Wikipedia, it turns out he had his own rather interesting theory, hypothesis, I guess, of evolution. Where he thinks that life on Earth became completely extinct several times and then rose again. On top of which I've looked up, apparently he was thought of very well as a professor. He's actually Danish, I think, but all of his papers have on German. So I went and looked up his papers, went to Google Scholar, right? And I put his name in and found all his papers, which are all in German. And the thing is, he's a botanist. Most of his papers are about Ceanothus. I can read enough German to see that that's what they're about. I didn't see a single paper that he wrote on bacteria. So, I cannot look in the book for this quote because it's in German and it's only in a few libraries, most of them in Europe. I found it in WorldCat. If anyone's interested, I can tell look up the name of the book and tell you and everything. So this is like a really lousy reference. You got a guy who's a botanist who, although he may have been a great professor, he was a real eccentric, especially on the subjects of evolution. He wrote about subjects like paleontology he knew nothing about. And he was allegedly doing his bacterial research at a time when nobody knew about DNA. This is Neffy's reference. And this is what he got from this godinscience.org or whatever it is. But he insists that, but Dr. Nielsen, well, again, he mispronounces it, studied bacteria for 30 years or 40 years or whatever the hell it was, and never saw any changes. Well, fuck! He's a botanist who studied Ceanothus. I don't... Anyway, you get the point. But this is so hard to argue against.
But the funny thing is that the one that makes me laugh very often is how they come out with, but all scientific advances were done by Christians initially anyway, as if that has any relevance. If the science is science, it's science. And another one of Juby's, who's one of my favourite little turds on the creationist scene.
Oh, by the way, the only reason that's true is because they're the ones that had the money.
Well, yeah,
they had the majority of all the money.
Yeah, so but also everyone was Christian. You were either Christian or dead. If you didn't go to church, you got fined. But Judy was going. This is the quote mining. He was talking about plate tectonics and such like, and how evolutionists, whoever they are, they must be from a different planet, had hijacked the idea because creationists had come out with it first, and he quoted Pellegrini. And they do this. The reason they do this so brazenly is because they know that their audience won't check anything up. They'll just take it verbatim. Because Pellegrini was French, and I found his document, his book online is in French, and it's in old French, but I managed to translate enough of it and understand enough of it. What Pellegrini's entire book was about was trying to explain how the American Indians, the Native Americans, came to be. Because, how did they exist if they'd been there so long? And so Pellegrini's whole idea was that, and he wasn't the first, because Humboldt and a couple of others before him had come up with the idea of the continental drift, as it was back then, because there was no mechanism for it, simply because they'd mapped enough of the Earth to see that South America looked like it fitted into Africa. But Pellegrini stepped forward with this, and his idea was that at the time of Noah, now bearing in mind he was talking about deep time, because he was one of the ones who came up with this idea that each day, I think he came out was a solar year, about 26,000 years or whatever. Anyway, but he said, the ocean split, and the flood, which drenched the Western world, as he called it, emptied into the chasm, which became the Atlantic Ocean, and never reached America, which meant that the Indians survived, because the Indians, therefore the Indians weren't descended from Noah, but were directly descended from Adam. And this was the whole book was, the pig science of the day, trying to explain with the natural philosophy he had how the Native Americans existed after the flood. And that was the whole point of it. And Juby ignored all of that. Now, he must have read enough of the book to understand that. But he ignored all of that and just took the little bit that Pellegrini said that, and didn't even bother to check to see whether Pellegrini was the first. Pellegrini was a Christian. That was enough for him. And he went with it. And his audience lap it up because they don't care to know what the truth is.
And it sounds like was researching, or at least looking into culture development, not and divergence of people, not plate tectonics itself. He was just saying that that's a mechanism for divide, but it wasn't even plate tectonics in the way we understand it now.
Plate tectonics is in my lifetime. Plate tectonics was didn't become publicly accepted in the scientific community until 1968, I think, was the seminal. There was a couple of two seminal papers in round about 68.
Yeah.
I put in my video that, I mean, David Attenborough, who I'm sure you all know from the BBC Nature programs, he was saying that he'd read a paper in the late 40s while he was at university, and he discussed this with his professor, who basically laughed at him and said, "Don't be so stupid. If you can come out with some mechanism that can move the continents around, then I'll start to take it seriously. But otherwise, it's ridiculous." So that's how new an idea plate tectonics is, really.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's the fact that these creationists come out. I mean, Juby's late. He's done 2 videos recently. I don't even know whether, because he makes me sick. The man actually makes me physically sick. But he was discussing one about these leaf hoppers. I don't know whether you read it. They found these leaf hoppers have cogs on their back legs. And there was a paper, I think it's in Science or Nature, showing that the reason these cogs have evolved is because of the speed that these what do you call them? They're aphids, or not aphids? They're the larval stage, not the pupal stage, whatever it is of these leaf hoppers. The speed they have to jump at, the speed their legs have to move at, is too fast for their nervous system to control, and therefore they've evolved cogs so that whichever leg kicks first, it locks into the other leg and makes both legs fly symmetrically to give this thing an incredible liftoff speed. And he goes into this, but and that's that proves that God obviously designed that. But I mean, there's some. The first obvious question I would have is, why would in this creationist world where all the animals are vegetarian and everyone loves everyone, why would any creature have a requirement to spring off at this lightning speed? Now, we know why they do it. They do it to escape predators. And that's the only reason they need to jump at that incredible speed. And the other fact
if I
is
may,
yeah.
The answer to that is actually very surprising, and actually, Venom Ping X enlightened me about that by accident. He was actually talking to other people, but I watched it, and it kind of enlightened me as to the mindset of where they think this comes from. All what he said, and I think this may pertain to other people because it kind of makes sense if you apply it to other people, that the species at the time in which Adam and Eve were around, and Noah and so forth, were super species, and that it's not evolution over millions of years, it's evolution over like really, really fast evolution. And
the super evolution thing.
yeah, basically. I just want to say that because that.
All right, so they're happy with it. So he's happy with evolution then.
He just doesn't like the word.
Yeah.
As long as it only happened within 6,000 years and humans didn't evolve, I guess so.
Yep. As long as it applies to everything else, and it can apply to Adam as well, to the fact that it allows for multiple cultures of people, as well, races and skin tones and stuff like that.
It doesn't actually, because not unless they could breed faster than every 9 months.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know what his perception of how fast humans breed.
They just make it up to fit, don't they?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I know you folks in the call can't actually see me on camera, but I'm going to be obnoxious for a moment because the other day I got myself a lighter, and I have the cam going for the sake of the audience. And as you can probably see there, the lighter is pretty full of fluid. Now, for the sake of somebody who keeps making this argument claiming that they're beating atheism, let's pretend for a moment to pray that the lighter lights. Fail. Therefore,
Sure.
God said no. Fail again. God said no again. Oh, wait, it lit this time. He said yes. Oh, I blew it out. It must have meant not yet. Here we go.
Yeah,
and this is why the power of prayer is silly. Thank you.
Yeah, that reminds me of this all of us here have heard of G-Man, so just leave the introductions. But anyway, that's his argument at the moment, is that refute my answered prayer thing, and I'm like, it has been done to death. And you've just proved it again.
It's not even an interesting argument.
It drives me nuts. I'm sorry.
And you cannot independently prove that. And by the way, I put the list for the University of California. I think I'm missing one for their channels in the chat here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. They also have an online. I'm looking for their online link, and I'll put that in when I find it. I know I've got it stashed. It's on an Excel file, but unfortunately, I can't bring up Excel files while I'm on Skype for some reason. They don't like each other.
Huh.
Or at least when I'm in a hangout, like this. It seems to cause problems. So, and I closed everything down because I was having link problems anyway. But I'll find it and I'll put it in, or I'll send it to you, Griffin, if I
go for
find
it.
it
Sure.
later. Yeah. But again, also check iTunes, because you can always download iTunes free, even if you don't buy anything. And they've got, go to iTunes U is what it's called, iTunes U. But also look at iTunes Podcasts, because some university stuff is in the podcast rather than iTunes U. Stanford has a lot of classes, especially things like quantum mechanics and astrophysics. The entire courses are in iTunes U. So
if you don't mind sailing with pirates, the teaching company.
I have a bunch of their stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got gigabytes of their stuff, I have to say, on mythology, history. You were talking earlier about the Middle Ages. They do a series on the low, high, and middle or whatever Middle Ages. Is there Middle Ages?
Yeah,
no, I can't remember what they are.
The low Middle Ages, the high Middle Ages, and the late Middle Ages. I have that.
That's it. Yeah.
Too. I actually have them on videotape. Video cassette.
I'm going to need to get an external hard drive. I can see this is going to get insane.
Yeah.
You don't have one already? If you don't back up your computer, well, I'm poor, but all you need is for your PC to crash once and for you to lose all your data, and you'll wish you had a hard drive.
And they're not as expensive as they used to be. I have two terabyte hard drives that are identical, and I back one up to the other, and those are my backup hard drives. And it's like, you don't have to get one that big. You can get a 500 gigabyte hard drive, fairly reasonably priced now. So
you can get a 500 gigs are dirt cheap now. You can because everyone's gone to terabytes.
Well, here's the thing. Even if my computer did fuzz out and I lost, everything, I don't really have anything that's worth losing. So that's good.
Well, see, I've got about 200 gigabytes of music and 200 gigabytes of audio books, and PDFs, because